after the era of consumer internet exploding in New York with the Foursquares and the Kickstarters, you had an explosion of what Alicia Glenn, who was deputy mayor for economic development, called hyphen tech. So New York became a capital of financial technology, fintech. It became a capital of adtech. It became a capital of edtech, education technology. And in conjunction with all the startup activity, I saw big corporates smelling opportunity as well. So
across all industries.
Across all of these hyphen tech industries. So you had Barclays partnering with Techstars to do the Barclays Fintech Accelerator. You had Kaplan partnering also with Techstars to do the edtech Accelerator. But there was nothing for us. There was no programmatic approach here at arguably the center of the commercial real estate and construction industry. There was no center for what we now call Proptech. And so I was lucky enough in 2014, just through networking in the industry, to meet my future partner, Aaron Block. And he had worked on Bruce Mosler's team, who's this legendary office broker at Cushman & Wakefield here. Gotten a lot of experience there, spent many years at Cushman & Wakefield, so was definitely a real estate guy, but then found himself in the early 20-teens running an e-commerce platform, cross-border e-commerce platform. Okay. So he had sold that business. He and his family had moved from Chicago to New York. He was looking to reestablish his network in New York, and he had a hunch that the intersection of real estate and technology was really going to take off, and that just like me, he had something to offer those entrepreneurs, having been a tech entrepreneur himself and also having been a real estate professional, both on the brokerage side, but also on the operations and management side for many years. So we met and he pitched me on this idea to do a real estate technology accelerator right here in New York. This was around 2014. And I thought it was a really interesting, great idea. I didn't really want to do any of the work to set it up. So I said, Aaron, I'll make a deal with you. If you set the whole thing up, I will guarantee you that I'll recruit a bunch of companies who will want to participate in our program. By that time, I had enough of a reputation where I could call in a few favors from some of these entrepreneurs in the ecosystem I knew.
And what was, in its original incarnation, what was the program? Like, what was the accelerator?
It's very similar to what it is today. We still run an accelerator program every year today. We've graduated over 50 companies. It's small every year.
But it's money, it's relationships, it's advice, it's support. What is the offering to early stage Proptech companies?
We started with the idea that we didn't want to be Y Combinator or Techstars. We didn't want to be a generalist accelerator. We didn't want to help entrepreneurs necessarily set up their business or necessarily recruit a bunch of technical people. That was not in our skill set. Where we knew there was a gap was we saw entrepreneurs who had objectively great products. Like when I used it, because I was a tech enthusiast and native, I got a lot of value out of it. But they were just struggling to sell it. They just couldn't properly pitch it. They didn't know how to speak the right real estate parlance, and they didn't know the correct people to pitch. And they didn't know the fact that often with a product in our industry, it requires a sale to not just one buyer, but 2, 3, or 4 buyers. You may have to sell it to the building engineer, the property manager, the IT person, and somebody in the C-suite. And those are different pitches. Those people care fundamentally about different things.
But what it sounds like is that effectively what the accelerator is doing is it's like a product marketing exercise that speaks to the idiosyncrasies of the sale to the real estate industry, which is very different and doesn't really map to other industries because of all these unique roles and the importance of convincing them to buy a product. The same as the CEO alongside the building engineer and the portfolio manager.
Absolutely. When we set out to start our first cohort, we knew we needed mentors from the industry who could really advise people about the idiosyncrasies associated with a sale. So we went to our entire network of real estate professionals, and there were quite a few at that point, not a tremendous amount, but there were enough successful real estate tech, Proptech entrepreneurs who we could call on as well. So we gathered a list of people and we got them to commit to spend a couple hours a week with each of these. We had 6 companies in our first cohort. We got them to commit to spend time with them. And then we realized that there was really something here and it was clicking, and we decided that we could expand our platform sort of beyond just being an accelerator. We could become a fund management business effectively for the category, but always with the focus on programmatically approaching entrepreneurs and working with them, being very clear with them about what we do for them and what we don't do. And that's why we like to be collaborative with other funds that bring other things to the table, like technical recruiting. But where we think we excel still remains the same, just a little bit more scaled up from 10 years ago. It's coaching entrepreneurs on how to approach go-to-market strategy, sales strategy, specifically to sell into this very challenging, recalcitrant, archaic industry.
No, it's so interesting to see the friction that so many prop tech companies face in first marketing their products. But I'm also curious, because this is 3 years before fifthwall started, and I feel like we encountered all these headwinds around convincing investors that this is even a worthwhile, compelling category to allocate money to. How did you do that in 2014, 2015? Get investors in the accelerator to see that there is money to be made and value to be created in this category?
The first group of people came from that mentor network. The startup bug is infectious. Our first fund was small. It was mainly high net worth individuals who came from the real estate industry. I think more than half of them had been mentors in the accelerator program. And a lot of them approached us. They said, working with this entrepreneur has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my career. I now realize not only is there money to be made for my business to grow my NOI or my EBITDA, whatever operating metric they had by using these technologies, there's also money to be made investing in these technologies, but I'm very busy. I'm not a picker. I'd rather just allocate to you, and then I'll get diversification and broader exposure to the industry. So what started as effectively convincing people who were already in our network because they were mentors in the program, they were then able to convince the sort of corporate entities that they worked with or knew or were service providers for. And that's sort of how we grew our funds business over time. And then by the time we hit, call it 2018, 19, we had done, and you had done, a great job of branding the industry and showcasing how much value there was to be made there and how much value had already been created by platforms like CoStar and Yardi and Zillow. And there were enough success cases of either very large scale private companies or companies in the public equity markets where some of that friction went away and people in the industry knew that in order to outcompete their peer set, they needed to be best in class with respect to not just using technology, but also investing in it.